Let's get right to it. First, I played audio earlier of your remarks on Hillary Clinton and why you're the best candidate to take her on. And why are you the best candidate to take on Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think first off, just the best candidate to nominate, period. Simple. And it kind of goes what you were just talking about people being frustrated, and I'm frustrated with the politicians in Washington, including many in our own party. People want someone who can fight and win and actually get results and do so without compromising our conservative principles. I'm the only one in the 17 who's actually done that. And if we want to take on Hillary Clinton, win three simple things. If you're going to take on a name from the past like Hillary Clinton, you need a name from the future. If you're going to take on someone who embodies everything that's wrong with Washington, you need someone not only who's not from Washington, and I'm obviously not from Washington, but someone who's actually taken on Washington. And we took on the big government special interest groups in Washington and poured all the money into the protests and into my recall. And we won that. We won that election, as we've done 3 times in 4 years. But most importantly, if you're going to take on somebody like Hillary Clinton who hasn't gotten anything done, in fact, arguably, if you look at what Hillary Clinton did at State Department, every place in the world that Hillary Clinton has touched is worse off today than before she took office. You're going to take on someone without a real record of accomplishment. You need to have someone who's actually got things done. And I would argue to you, there's no candidate running who's done more to push common sense conservative reforms and actually get results over the past 4.5 years than we have.
Governor Walker, one of the challenges for any Republican nominee will be turning independent. You know, we've got the base, of course. Understandably, both parties have their base, and there are fractures within each party. But independents and women will make a big difference in this election. How do you attract the independents to your cause?
Well, I tell you, we don't just have a theory. We've actually done it. I've won 3 elections for governor in a blue state. I won with almost unanimous support amongst Republicans, the full spectrum, because I'm a full spectrum conservative. But we carried independents in each of those elections by over 11-point margin. Why? In the end, the independents, the center doesn't want you to move to the center on every issue. What they want you to do is lead. It's all about leadership. We laid out big, bold ideas, and then we showed we had the capacity to act on them. I think the biggest frustration that voters have, from Republican to Democrat alike, is there's no leadership in Washington. They're not listening to the American people. They're not getting things done. And for us, we're going to lay out in the coming days big, bold reforms, just like the big, bold reforms we did in the state of Wisconsin. And I think people are hungry for that kind of leadership again. I think independents will gravitate to it.
You know, Governor, one of the frustrations of the American people is with government that has not been effective, efficient, and there, of course, are many debates over the constitutionality of many of the things being done in Washington by this administration. On the other side of that, there is the Republican leadership in Washington, which also gets a great deal of scrutiny and question, and I think rightfully so, from Americans who are not happy with the form of leadership. How would you, if elected president, go into Washington and pull that leadership into a more conservative, focused, and effective leadership?
Well, part of the key is doing what we're doing now, which is laying out a very clear platform, a very clear plan for the future, week by week, month by month, leading up to the primaries. We're going to go into great detail about that. That helped me when I was running for governor because, in our state, we didn't just take on the big government union bosses. We didn't just take on the Democrats. In many ways, we had our own fight, our own battle, if you will, with even our own party, because there were a lot of people in the legislature when I first came in, when I was running, who really were not all that interested on making big, bold, major reforms. And we came in, and very clearly laid out what our plans were. We noted we had a mandate. We acted quickly. And in turn, by doing that, we put the pressure on to get those reforms done, not just in the first 100 days, but in the first month and a half. We did a good chunk of the reforms we put in place. We did right away in those first 45 days or so. We're going to need to do the same thing in Washington. We need to send a bill up to repeal Obamacare right away on the very first day. We need to push back on stopping the bad deal with Iran on the very first day. We need to push back on the actions the president did in repeal the executive actions the president took on illegal immigration on the very first day. And then we need to push a big, bold agenda that talks about transferring power and money in many key areas, from Medicaid to transportation to infrastructure to environmental protection to even education, from Washington back to the hardworking taxpayers in states all across America. We need to do that right away. That'll provide the kind of long-term transformational changes that restore power to the American people.
Governor, you had this to say about Hillary Clinton and how she measures success.
You know, Hillary Clinton I think she believes that you measure success in government by how many people are dependent on the government. We as Americans, not just as conservatives, we as Americans should measure success by just the opposite, by how many people are no longer dependent on the government.
Governor, dependency on government, entitlements, one of the biggest problems we have in this country. And I want to take this angle to it. Whether it's SNAP program, S-CHIP, various programs, welfare, there's a way for us to help those that are indigent and in needs. There are some people who fall between the cracks, but rarely do we ever have true accountability, and rarely do we actually make sure that the people that need help get it and raise the bar for participation so that those that abuse it are unable to abuse it as easily. How do you plan to reduce not only dependence, but make these programs stronger as far as their structure and their due process?
Well, great point. Couple thoughts. One, I'm proud of the fact that my state's the fight I'm having with the federal government, but I've changed the rules in our budget so that if an adult is able to work, if someone's actually able to work and they're an adult, we tell them they don't get a welfare check for any of these programs unless they're enrolled in one of our job training programs and unless they can actually pass a drug test. Why? Because we know in the end there are jobs to be had all across our state, and I would say all across America. They require basic job skills, and they require people being able to pass a drug test. So if we get people in that position, we can find a job for just about anyone in America. Obviously, there are people in unique situations, and we need to account for someone who's not able to work. That makes sense. But for those who are able, absolutely, positively, we need to do this, not just because it's good for the taxpayer, because we're doing them a disservice as a person if we don't empower them to control their own life and to control their own destiny, to the dignity that comes from work. That's something I learned a long time ago, washing dishes at the Countryside restaurant. It's something I learned flipping hamburgers in high school at McDonald's. It's certainly something I got passed on to me from my parents, my grandparents, who were farmers on one side and machinists on the other. That's something that's the essence of the American dream. That's the American spirit, that anyone can do and be anything they want as long as they work hard and play by the rules. We need to restore that feeling in America again. We can do that with the right leadership.
Governor Scott Walker is my guest. Let's go to immigration and border security, Governor. The statements are obvious. Close the border, secure the airports, deal with illegal immigration, whether it comes from south of the border, north, or overstays of visa. There are a variety of ways, European, etc. But we need to do something about the largest block, and that is the illegal aliens who enter our country. It's a civil violation first, but a felony second. And we don't seem to want to enforce, or at least this administration, and frankly, I'll say the federal government since the Reagan amnesty, has not done an overall good job of enforcing immigration laws and of closing the border. What would you do as president?
Well, you're right, and it goes hand in hand. When people ask about other things that can or should be done, I say you can't do it until you fundamentally, absolutely secure the border. It's not just an immigration issue. It's a matter of national security, public safety, and even sovereignty. That if we've got international criminal organizations penetrating our southern-based borders, if we had that on our east or west coast, we'd be sending in the Coast Guard, if not the Navy. These are people, international criminal organizations, bringing in firearms, bringing in drugs, bringing in people not to work, but human trafficking. We need to shut this down, and we need to do it through a combination of infrastructure, an actual fence and wall system. We need to do it in combination with technology and with personnel. Heck, I was in Israel earlier this year. They put up a 500-mile fence. They have it staffed, and they use technology to keep it secure. And we've literally, in that country, they've seen a reduction in terrorist acts of greater than 90%. If they can do it in Israel, there's no reason why America, a much greater country, can't get to the point where we can fundamentally secure our border. Along with that, you got to secure the border and enforce the laws. There should be no debate and no discussion about sanctuary cities in this country. The law should be clear. It is the federal law when it comes to immigration. People in San Francisco or any other community across America are not above the law of this great country, and we need to start enforcing it. And then no amnesty. And then if we have a legal immigration system in this country, we should make sure it gives priority to the impact on American working families and their wages in a way that will truly improve the American economy.
Well, Governor, first I want to thank you for answering my next question. You got ahead of me there because my question would have been about sanctuary cities, and would you order your Department of Justice to enforce federal law over sanctuary cities that it's been going on for over 20 years in this country? You've answered it, but just to be clear, you would enforce federal law over these sanctuary cities and their laws.
Absolutely. And for goodness sakes, I mean, we're seeing the very real public safety risk. But what happens when you have people who've committed multiple criminal offenses, they are a public safety risk to anyone in this country, and it's beyond me why we wouldn't be enforcing the law.
Governor, a final question. I know we've had you for a little time, but I do appreciate your time. Tax policy in this nation. We have a problem in our tax code, corporate tax policy, not only for global corporations, but from Main Street on up. We need to fix the tax code. Your approach, sir.
Well, I came of age during President Ronald Reagan, so I'm a huge fan, not just because it's a politically popular thing, it's because that's my president. That's who I came of age with. And I think back to 1986 when I was still in high school and think about the Reagan tax cuts. Boy, they set a pretty good pattern out there. 2 simple rates, simplified the code, brought the not just individuals, but had a reasonable competitive rate for job creators. That brought about one of the most exciting, dynamic times, one of the longest periods of economic growth in American history. We should follow that model again. We should update that for the times that we're in right now, but that was a pretty strong message. I say back then we call it the Laffer curve. I often describe it as the Coles curve because it's a great way of explaining why a philosophy like that works. Is you put more money back in the hands of the American people, just like a great company like Kohl's lowers the prices on their products to get more people to buy at their stores. Putting more money back in the hands of the American people is going to ultimately improve the economy and drive up wages so that more people are making more money. You do that by having the government take less of that money and keep more of your take-home pay. In the same way you do it by lowering the burden on job creators in America so they can compete in the world and bring more of those jobs back home.
Well, Governor, nice to hear you reference the Laffer curve, by the way. So as a member of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, it's nice to hear someone refer to what is frankly, a sane way to approach this. Final thought from you, Governor. Iowa, it's one of the big states. You and Donald Trump, the businessman, are now I should say, not really fighting it out, but the polls have you two with him in the lead, and you've dropped a little bit. How do you take him on in Iowa going into the next debate?
Oh, I think for me, I'm going to focus on what we have to offer. I'm not going to fight any of the other Republicans. My fight is with Hillary Clinton. She would be a horrible president, arguably even worse than this president. So I'm going to show people I'm up for the fight, whether it's taking her on the illegal and incompetent use of her emails that have exposed our top secret information to foreign countries, potentially with her actions, whether it's pushing back on her attacks on me on this on her college student loan plan, where I point out I'm the first governor in my state's history to ever freeze tuition 4 years in a row while she was out charging colleges $225,000 a speech. I'm more than willing to be in the fight. I'm just ready to take the fight to Hillary Clinton. And I think the more we show people we're ready to do that, and the more we show, whether it's in Iowa or anywhere else, and again, if you want someone who can fight and win, do so in a way that actually gets results and is able to do that without compromising conservative principles. I'm the only guy in the race who's done it. If I can do it in Wisconsin, a blue state like Wisconsin, we can do it anywhere in America. And I hope people help us out at Scott Walker.